What's happening? Jeff Lerner here, your friendly billionaire in the making. Yes, I said it. No, I don't regret it. I know the truth can hurt, but only if you let it. Hey, don't sweat it, because I read it somewhere that if you're looking for your match, you already met it. Wow, that's actually a rap I wrote when I was in 8th grade. And I thought I wanted to be a rapper, but now I'm an entrepreneur. And I like that even more. It's like creative and fulfilling, just like being a rapper, only I'm not pushing out of my element, I'm more in my lane, if you will. Now back to the scripted intro, or at least saying what I meant to say. Let's talk about entrepreneurial mindset, and how to get motivated, how to find that drive, how to create that center that you can go back to again and again and again in a world that doesn't really support these wild and crazy dreams that we have. In fact, it kind of tries to beat them out of us. Well, I'm here to boost you up and say, don't let it happen. And here are gonna be 4 concepts that you can anchor to come back to again and again when you need that motivation. I'll set this up by telling you that when I was 16 years old, I had the only job I've ever had in my life. For 3 weeks, I worked in the supply room at a law firm. It actually only took me 3 weeks to get fired. Probably only took me 3 days to figure out I was miserable. And I made a decision, I'm never going to trade my time for someone else's money again in my life. Or at least not in a way that I can't pick and choose and I don't control and I can't say yes to when I want to and no to when I want to. And I ended up becoming a musician because at least that was something I could do, or if I didn't feel like taking a gig, I could turn it down and I wasn't gonna lose my entire livelihood. That's when I was 16 years old, and I've been having to fortify my life path with core concepts and belief systems that push me against the grain of how the world treats me ever since. It's 25 years later, $50 million in sales later, and I think I've arrived at a pretty good grasp of what it takes. And I'm gonna share with you again 4 concepts that you can root to get the drive that you need in your life to create your own destiny. All right, let's get into it. All right, so how to be a kick-butt, game-changing baller entrepreneur that gets what he or she wants out of this world, even when the world will fight you on it. 4 concepts. Let's talk about the first one. The first one is put first things first. Doesn't sound particularly insightful or genius, but it's actually really, really hard because you have to decide what the first thing is. You can't let the world decide what the first thing is. And the world will try to make the first thing a different thing than what you need the first thing to be in order to actually go out and get what you want out of life. That's, I would say, if there's any consistent epidemic or plague to most people, it's that they aren't really being intentional about deciding what their top priorities should be in life, and they're kind of letting the world decide for them. One of the things that I have found is a deep truth for myself and working with hundreds and hundreds of people over the last 10 to 15 years, it's been almost 15 years now, of like coaching and supporting other people too that are trying to go after these big goals, is that you have to make it like ridiculously simple. You have to make the core principles and beliefs on which you structure your life so simple that even when 99% of your mental capacity is occupied just trying to deal and manage and cope in the moment, like literally you're on the battlefield of life and the bullets are flying and the bombs are exploding and people are yelling from both sides and you're being torn in every different direction, and you still have to be able to go back to these core principles, these philosophies, these ideas that you can anchor to and be grounded in. And if they're too complicated, if they're even a little bit complicated, you won't be able to access them in that moment amidst the chaos. I try to come up with these very, very simple concepts. And one of the biggest ones that I've grounded to that always helps me keep my priorities in line is called the 3 Ps. I call them the 3 Ps of an awesome life, or the 3 Ps of the 3 Ps of excellence, because I actually consider excellence and an awesome life to be somewhat synonymous. That's my particular definition. Some people define an awesome life as like, how little can I do? How much can I chill? How much can I kick my feet up? How much weed can I smoke? How many video games can I play? I don't believe that's actually an awesome life. I don't think that's a recipe for long-term satisfaction and fulfillment. I think that excellence and achievement and performance and knowing that I'm doing my personal best, not necessarily in comparison to anyone else, but for myself, is synonymous with how awesome my life is. Again, I need very, very simple formulas so that in the moment, in the chaos, I can categorize what I'm doing and what pathway of excellence it's helping me move down. And that's what the 3 Ps is. The 3 Ps is personal, professional, and physical excellence. I usually say it physical, personal, and professional because I believe that's a concentric inside-out model because it's anchored in your body, it's physical, it's anchored in how you feel, it's anchored in what you physically do and the actions you're capable of. Then you move out a rung and it's to your relationships. And then and only then you move out another rung to the professional category of your life because frankly, without energy at the center, physical energy, and without relationship excellence in the second ring, you're not going to be able to go build professional excellence and have a great career and make a lot of money and impact the world. That's something I think a lot of people flip. All that to say, you have to look at your life. And when I say put first things first, what I mean is you have to figure out what is the first thing right now in my life. I want, let's say, 3 types of excellence in my life, physical, personal, and professional. But I have to figure out which one do I need to prioritize right now in the moment. And over time, I believe in a balanced excellence in all 3 of these channels. But there are certain times that you have to look at your life and say, okay, what do I need to focus on right now? And I tend to say, in terms of an imperative, in terms of a goal, early in life or early in this conversation, you might be 50 years old and evaluating your life objectively through this lens for the very first time. I would still say that's early in life in terms of your process of creating the 3 Ps of excellence in your life. Early in that process, you usually have to make resources a massive priority. Hopefully you're seeing this when you're 15 years old or 20 years old and you have a lot of runway. But at some point, sooner the better, you need to make resources a massive priority in your life. And when I say resources, I do mean money. I don't mean only money, but I do mean money. I mean money, I mean influence, I mean authority, I mean achievement, I mean respect, I mean credibility, I mean impact, right? The more resources you build, it's just like investing. The more you have to work with, the easier it is to generate a return, right? You want to have great relationships? It's a lot easier if you're not stressed out all the time, you're not in a hurry all the time, you're not constantly under the gun, you're not constantly behind the 8 ball, you're not behind on your rent, you're not having your power shut off. Like, get your resource house in order and it's going to facilitate better relationships. It's going to facilitate better health. It's a lot easier to get in shape if you can hire a trainer and maybe you can even hire a chef, right? Say, hey, I want 5 paleo meals a day prepared for me and served up on a platter for me so I don't even have to think about it. It can become automation to have health and relationship success if you have resources. What I tell people is, and this is maybe not a popular view, they're not going to invite me into the schools to share this with the kids, but in a lot of ways, you need to focus on resources, which does largely include money, until you get your life to a place where you can afford to not make that the top priority. Think about the person you're going to marry someday. Think about the person you're already married to. Don't you owe it to them to have a solid resource game in place? Think about the kids you're going to have someday, or maybe the kids you already have, or maybe the kids they already have. Don't you owe it to them to have a solid resource game in place? When somebody gets sick, when somebody gets injured, when somebody gets scared, when somebody has something happen in their life that they couldn't predict or they couldn't control, don't you owe it to that person to be a rock of resource, solidness that they can come lean against, and you can provide them the stability that they might need to get through that situation. I've had family members get tragically ill, unable to work. They didn't have the resources. I was able to say, hey, come live with me. We'll get through this together. I was able to be that rock because I had my resource game in place, right? I believe that it's naive in this world to think that, money doesn't buy happiness, resources aren't where it's all at. And I'm not saying that's all there is to life, but I'm saying if you have to pick something to focus on that's going to catalyze and have a domino effect through the other aspects of your life to make you stronger, make you happier, that's maybe the one to focus on. Maybe that and finding a great person to spend your life with. But honestly, I've been married before and it didn't work out. I'm married now and it works out great. I'm not going to say it's because of money, but I'm going to say that money is a major exacerbator of stress. It's the number 1 cause of divorce, right? I think, if somebody's 20 years old and they tell me how in love they are, I would suggest to them, great, put a pin in that, wait 5 years, go work your butt off, go do sales, go do commissions, go do some way to build a base of resources, and then maybe circle back to that, right? That's a different video, right? All that to say, putting first things first. And so when I talk about the 3 Ps, physical, personal, and professional, what I would say is physically get your health to a place where you have the energy and you have the routine that'll sustain you. Personally, get your life to a place where it's as simple as possible, but you're fundamentally fulfilled and you're not unhappy. And then professionally, focus on resources until it becomes a strong foundation on which to build excellence in the other two categories. That's my general approach. Maybe some people may say I'm wrong. Maybe some people say I'm short-sighted. Some people may say I'm greedy. I'm 41 and it works for me. I did shoot an interview that you might want to see that's a much more exhaustive discussion about this whole awesome life concept. We'll put a link to it below if you want to check that out and learn more, okay? Now let's move on to the second concept. All right, we're gonna move a little faster through these next two concepts. They're equally important though. The second concept is called, and it's 100% not my unique idea. It's actually borrowed from the Navy SEALs and delivered to me through a guy named David Goggins. Pretty amazing guy. I love his book, Can't Hurt Me. Read it, check it out, watch his stuff. The guy's amazing. And he has this concept that he got from his SEAL training called the 40% rule, which basically says when you get to the point when the human body or the human mind or the emotional scale or whatever aspect of the human being gets to the place where you feel exhausted, you feel like you can't do anymore, you feel like you've given it your all, based on the body's survival instinct, it's actually triggering that sensation at a relatively low threshold to your actual capacity. So when you get that feeling, I'm beat, I've done all I could do, that actually means you're at about 40% of your ability, 40% of your capacity, right? And he has these experiments and this coaching, and he does this with people. There's a pretty well-known story where he went and lived with a guy who's a really successful, wealthy guy, sold his company. This guy, Jesse Itzler, I don't know. He said, how many pull-ups can you do? And Jesse did, he worked hard. He's in good shape too. He had done endurance racing before himself, and he was able to do 18 pull-ups. And David said, how many more can you do? And he said, I can't do any more, man, I'm beat. And he would not let him leave. David's a pretty big dude, bigger than Jesse. And he was like, bro, you're not going anywhere. You're doing more pull-ups. You're doing more pull-ups. And he pushed him and he pushed him and he pushed him. And after Jesse thought that 18 was his cap, he made him do 100 more pull-ups. You have this giant reservoir, this giant reserve tank. Most people are never even tapping into. And I call this concept, I've taken this 40% rule, and in my life, I call it the marginal effort concept. Without getting too technical, there's a concept in economics about marginal efficiency where like the progress or leverage happens at the fringe of effort or production or capacity or whatnot. So that 40% of whatever it is, that's what most people do. Most people wear themselves out, they work themselves to the bone, they give it, quote, give it their all to get to that 40% threshold. You do it, I do it, just about everybody does it. Everybody who's not lazy and says, I'm gonna work hard, you're giving it 40%. Your value in this world, your compensation in this world, the rewards in this world that you can reasonably expect are based on what you do above that 40%. So like, everybody's doing the 40%. Everybody's working hard. I mean, 40 hours, right? It's not 40%, 40 hours. Everybody's working 40 hours. Everybody's burning a certain amount of calories per day based on their lean body mass. Everybody's, who's in a committed relationship is kind of giving it a certain amount of attention. But the real rewards in life are based on what you do above that 40%. So the person who consistently goes from 40 to 45 is going to get exponentially more rewards than everybody else who just stops at 40. So it's not like, most people go to 40 and let's say I went to 44, so I did 10% more, so I'm gonna get 10% more reward. No, all the leverage is in that top 4%, let's say. If most people consistently go to 40 and you consistently go to 44, that extra 4%, which is 10% of 40, you might get 100% more reward. That's where all the leverage is. So this marginal effort concept applied in your life, it applies physically, it applies personally, it applies professionally. You go online and say, if you want to be in decent shape, run, give some kind of physical effort 3 times a week for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, right? Go for a walk, hike a hill, whatever. Listen, man, everybody who's not in bad shape, they do those things. They do some 20, 30 minutes a day, a few times a week. Whatever you do above that is where you're going to get excellence. It's where you're going to get the reward. And it's not about comparing yourself to other people, but it's understanding that you're always being compared to other people, whether you shouldn't derive your self-worth from it, but you should accept that you're going to derive your value from it in terms of your interaction with the world. People are evaluating you as, suitability as a partner. People are evaluating suitability for employment. People are evaluating you as, suitability for, hey, who am I going to call to help me move? Like, everybody's got an opinion, or they're sizing you up. We're all sizing each other up all the time. And your value to the world is going to be based on everything you do above the average of what everybody else is doing. Oh, that's harsh. That's not fair. You're saying I have to. It's not about competing. It's about knowing. Here's what it's about. Knowing that if you're doing your actual best, you're going to places that the average isn't going to. So if you're going to 50% of capacity, 60% of capacity, that 10 or 20% that you're going above the 40% that everyone else is doing, that's where all the rewards happen. That's where people are like, oh, he's a catch. She's a catch. Man, I would love to get together with that person. That's where, man, next time you have an opening at your company, you need to hire that person. And they may not use this language and say, oh, well, because that person consistently goes 10 to 20% into their reservoir that most people never tap into. But that's actually what they're noticing. So really, really buying into this 40% rule, or this marginal effort concept, or whatever you want to call it, and consistently going beyond it, training yourself to go beyond it. The mind is a normalizing machine. The more often you go beyond it, your threshold expands, and you start to absorb some of that reservoir where it's no longer your backup tank. It becomes part of your normal tank. You start using it more and more to where now when you go beyond, you're going even further than you were before. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Now, the third concept is, and this one's pretty short and simple. You have to care about how people feel. You have to genuinely learn to care about how people feel. You care about how you feel. You don't want to be a narcissist. I promise. And forget, maybe you don't care about being a narcissist. Maybe you don't have a moral or ethical objection to that. Just don't do it as a practical strategy. People hate narcissists. Eventually, narcissists usually lose. And I say narcissism, even if you're not a clinical narcissist, if you're just self-absorbed, if you're just selfish, if you're just short-sighted, if you're just myopic and focused on getting for yourself, even as a survival mechanism. The reality is most people don't want to be around people who are only worried about themselves. You have to learn, you have to teach yourself, train yourself. Hopefully it comes naturally, but even if it doesn't, it's not an excuse. And how much should you care? More. The answer is always more. Do I care enough? No. Care more. Care more about how people feel. Maya Angelou said, people forget what you say, they'll forget what you do, they will never forget how you make them feel. And where you will find this showing up in your life in a way that creates massive results is in your communication. If you legitimately care how other people feel, it will have a massive impact on the way you speak, what you say, how you say it, where you put your priorities, how you spend your time. At the end of the day, how you are is how you'll speak. You can only trick yourself and other people for so long, putting on an act or trying to speak or trying to behave in a way that isn't consistent with how you are. If you want better results in this world and you're not getting them, the world isn't responding to you in the way that you want, I can 100% guarantee you that is directly related to the world not feeling in a way that's really positive based on its interaction with you. If you become a person that is consistently leaving sprinkles of positive experience everywhere you go and with everyone you talk to, you will never want for anything in this world. Guarantee it. Remember, how you are is how you speak. And if you want more, care more. And the fourth concept, actually, which is pretty closely related to the first concept about the 3 P's of excellence, but it's what I call the 3-slice pie. It's a little different angle on that. That's basically about resource allocation based on your circumstances again. So at any given moment, you should be able to sit down in your life on a piece of paper and draw a pie, just a round pie, right? And draw it into 3 slices. One of those slices is physical, one of those slices is personal, one of those slices is professional. It's very rare in a human life that all 3 of those slices should be the exact same size in terms of how you're allocating your resources, your time, your energy, your money. And like I said, this is closely related to the first concept, but this is perhaps a more simplified way to look at it. To the average 22-year-old, I would say, hey, physically, here's the thing. You never want to be doing anything to harm yourself. So I'm not saying, oh, you're 22, it doesn't matter. Just go live off McDonald's and get drunk every night and eat Cheetos and harm yourself. That's never okay. You never want the slice of pie to be shrinking. It's okay at 22 years old to have a relatively small slice of pie focused on physical excellence, because the reality is just based on some minimal, consistent, decent habits, you can maintain a reasonable quality in that aspect of your life. The personal slice of your pie, if you're 22 years old, I would argue, shouldn't dominate the whole pie. I mean, it depends on your situation. Listen, if you've ended up married with 5 kids at 22 years old, the reality is the personal slice of your pie is going to be a lot bigger than the bachelor, and that is what it is. But the goal is to create clear boundaries. Whatever size the slice needs to be, create clear boundaries. And those boundaries shouldn't just be a mental concept. They should show up in your actual life. They should show up in the way that you spend your time. The professional slice of your pie, again, for most people, here's the challenge. If the professional slice of your pie isn't big enough now, it's only going to get more problematic later. This is why I talk about the weighting of a life relative to your age, relative to your pathway through life. The younger you are, the more you have the power of compounding and the power of time on your side to focus on the professional. Because I promise, people say, money, like I said, money's not everything, this and that. Go to any life who's consistently struggling financially, struggling personally, struggling, even with health, struggling in various aspects. Put $2 million in the bank, $5 million in the bank, something, and that may sound like a lot of money, but I'm saying just park it in the bank and pay them, like a 6% a year annuity, right? So if it's $5 million, what would that be? That would be $50,000. It's only $30,000 a year at a 6% annuity, right? But just give them that predictable, consistent base of underlying income, $2,500 a month, and then look at how that ripples through all the different aspects of their life. It'd be huge. The earlier you focus on shoring up that slice of your pie, and the more you can, create the power of compounding, the leverage of compounding over time in that slice of your pie, the more stable the other 2 slices of your pie are going to be. So, again, the exercise, without belaboring the point, is to sit down, draw a circle, label it pie of life of pi, that's a book, right? And figure out the relative size of your slices, and then look at your schedule, like draw out your 7 days of the week and look at how you spend your hours. Look at, create sort of a mental map and say, where are my thoughts tending to go? And your thoughts and your schedule should roughly correspond to the slices of your pie, right? Hopefully that makes sense. The 3-slice pie. Life is a 3-slice pie. And it really, really helps to see it that way, I promise. Okay? So that is 4 concepts that if you ground to them, you will really never want for motivation, because they're just very practical things. Like, you don't have to motivate yourself probably to breathe. You don't have to motivate yourself to get up and go to the grocery store if you run out of, whatever, pasta or something, because there's just sort of a systematized need and response basis to those aspects of your life, right? So the more you make this very kind of ordinary, and the more you make life planning just like foundational and ordinary to your life, the more it can just happen automatically, and it doesn't have to be this constant exertion of willpower to like do the thing and to have your priorities in order, right? So that, again, that's the idea here, is to have very simple life concepts that you can ground to, okay? I have a lot more videos about this stuff. I encourage you to check out my channel. If you've enjoyed this, I would invite you to subscribe. Also, let me know, maybe hit that like button for me if you've gotten some value here. I appreciate you watching this. I'm here to help you make your life more awesome. This is my passion, this is my life, this is my commitment, and I can't do it without you. So thanks again for being here. Check out my other videos, subscribe to the channel, give me a like if you would, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care.